I grew up in the Central Valley town of Selma, just south of Fresno, and Frank grew up in Madera. When we were both boarders at Bellarmine, we'd often take the Greyhound bus home. We'd sit there for 3.5 hours just talking. So we became friends early. Frank was number one 8 times in a row. 8 semesters, he was number one, top of the honor roll 8 times in a row. So that's in a place with a lot of capable young people. That's pretty remarkable.
Well, thinking outside the box is another amazing thing about Frank. Frank proposed adding an innovative new byline for the newspaper in which a student would report an interview with a famous person every issue. Frank suggested appointing senior staff writer Craig Vetter to interview Willie Mays of the San Francisco Giants.
It was the intensity of his work and study and reading. A guy would never look up.
Frank volunteered to get up even earlier than everyone else to serve as an altar boy, 5 or 6 a.m. Now, I know it wasn't easy for him because one winter morning in our senior year, Frank rubbed his sleepy eyes and quietly growled, "Jesus Christ," and then added, "These are supposed to be the best years of our lives."
Then he plays the offensive guard with the football team. I mean, how many poets are also first-string Bellarmine varsity? He was 187 pounds of pure muscle. Others, I guess, in Madera and his later life, assigned the nickname Bear to him. I've never touched a bear, believe me, but I'm guessing that it's something like that, just more muscle mass than you could believe. He was writing poetry about halfway through our junior year or so, and just prolifically writing these free verse poems. And just amazing, like Wallace Stevens coming to life. We were all astounded. Who writes poetry in high school? But Frank did.
Storytelling was probably one of his most notorious. When Frank returned from Madera to our dorm on Sunday nights, he would entertain us with updates about Billy Carter, a local Madera kid who was noted for being the toughest street fighter in the Central Valley.
Frank would just be bubbling with enthusiasm about the people he was meeting on the weekends in Madera. So he's had this intense week with all these practices and leadership and all this kind of thing. Then he goes to Madera and probably doesn't get much sleep over the weekend and adventures with this Okie kid who was about his age, maybe a year older. And Frank was talking about the material that 40 years later, 30 years later, became Jesse's Ghost. That year, we read, I think, all 30 or 32 of John Steinbeck's books while he's getting all this other leadership in and top grades. And then we kept on reading the senior year. So Frank was reading already at age 16 systematically in American literature, which he wound up teaching. The great range and the balance. I should also say that the humanity of his books is just astounding also. In each of his novels, also, there's this very interesting role. A priest is there, and he takes his moral dilemmas, which are always there in Frank's writing, which also traces to Bellarmine influence. And so these priests, there was the one in Shoshone Mike, there was 2 more really in the book set in the Nevada desert. Also, his most recent book, Jesse's Ghost, this guy runs into a priest and talks with him, a main character. And this conversation is very humane, very subtle, and it's light. It doesn't, it's not a Jerry Falwell harangue or something like that over a pulpit. It's just a thoughtful, relaxed conversation about, okay, what are the real moral issues here? So that kind of thing comes through all of his novels. Frank was born on a Basque ranch in central Nevada. His mother's Basque, his father's Basque. His Basque identity was very important throughout his career. He spent a lot of time in Europe also, in southern France and the Basque region on the north side of the Pyrenees. So he's got connections with Basques over there. He spent a lot of time in Spain, south of the Pyrenees. There's a character in every one of his novels and plenty of stories that also bring up Basque, plenty of chapters.
Frank was accomplished many things, from Wallace Stegner Fellowship, who kept creative writing at Stanford, to getting PhD from Harvard, saying nothing of the many books that he published.